Oh,
Hello and welcome to the final LaoisToday Rugby World Cup podcast. How are you, Stephen?
a bit sad actually. A bit sad that it's our last one. A bit sad that the Rugby World Cup is over. A bit sad that there isn't a huge game to anchor this weekend. You know, that you don't have a big game on Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday night to look forward to. Like the URC doesn't do it for me in the same way as the World Cup does. The soccer doesn't do it for me in the same way. And the GA at the moment is real niche stuff in that it's club championship, which I love, but it's still not blockbuster. So I do think we have a little bit of a gap. And the World Cup, like, that was a great final. Like, probably a bit of a game for the purists, but it was so seismic. The collisions, like it was brilliant. I really enjoyed the World Cup final. I really enjoyed the knockout stages of it. I know we got two slightly underwhelming semi-finals. Though the England South Africa game was sort of gripping and went to the last minute and all of that. But yeah, fair play to South Africa. You called it
Yeah,
right again.
and of course, a quick mention before we move on too far. The saddest thing of all is we've no Alan with us today.
No, no,
So that's
the
an
star
awful
of the
lot of
show.
listeners are going to be very disappointed.
Yeah,
Everybody's favorite Alan is away on his holidays, so
yeah.
we'll
We
have
missed
to
the
mosey on with just myself and yourself.
we missed the trick by not sort of getting his thoughts via WhatsApp. We should have thought of that because he was.
Let him enjoy his few days off. He's a hardworking man.
Yeah, well, we could have sent him before he
Yeah, well,
left.
you said that we or the final was one for the purists, and that's probably you and me. I don't think it would attract a whole lot of new fans, but my little lad's only 8, and he really enjoyed the collisions. Every time there was a hit, he'd give it a fist bump. He
Yeah,
didn't mind who was throwing the hits in, but he
yeah.
enjoyed it. Yeah, it was
And
a
my
was a
lad is this.
colossal game.
My lad is the same. He says he enjoys. Your lad plays rugby, doesn't he? Does he play Port
He
under
does, yeah.
nines? My lad, well, he's playing soccer. You can't really play soccer and rugby. They're just
No,
they're not. So they're on at the same time, more or less. Now, if you're really
exactly. Yeah,
dedicated,
Saturday mornings is
now if you're really
Saturday mornings.
dedicated, you could go to training, and then the fixtures might fall kindly for you. That, like, I know sometimes the soccer matches are 2 o'clock in the day and that, but I'm not really at that level of, and I'm at a sports nut, but I'm not really at the level where I'd bring him to North Kildare for an under 9 rugby match at 11 o'clock, and then bring him to Abbey Leaks at 2 o'clock for a
No,
soccer blitz. He's
that's parental dedication taken to the extreme. All right.
Yeah.
Um,
So the only thing I think about the
but
rugby, we did go out a couple of times to talk. My man is he's a bit sort of shy in that he does love watching it and he loves throwing around the rugby ball and that at home. Um, but maybe this is me being soft. I view if you could get a bad experience playing rugby now at this age, and it could turn you off it for a while. Whereas it's the type of game you can take up at a slightly older age if you have a grounding in other sports.
yeah, and I totally understand if parents want to keep their kids out of rugby because they think it's too dangerous. But something's come up with one of my friends recently that it's driving me bananas. The wife wants the little lad to play rugby. The little lad wants to play rugby, but the dad is from North Dublin, and there's some reverse snobbery going on. And he says he wouldn't let his son play rugby, regardless of the fact that he wants to,
Yeah, I
because it's a
disagree with that.
posh man's sport.
Yeah,
And I said to him,
yeah.
there's not a posh man out in Port Arlington
Yeah,
kicking rugby.
I challenge anyone to go to Port Arlington or Port or Athy or Carlow or Roscrea or anywhere and not find that it's the most salt of the earth welcoming sort of environment that you'll go into. I went out to Tucker in Port myself as an 8 or 9 year old and loved every minute of it. Loved absolutely
Mm.
every minute of it. I remember going to North Kildare and Kildara and the Curragh, and they do the North Leinster blitzes, and then you might go off to a Leinster blitz. And I actually remember we went up to St. Mary's in Dublin. We played some type of a Leinster blitz. We went up to Dundalk. We stayed overnight. We played an All Ireland blitz. We played Cork Con. The Port under 12s played Cork Con. We played Cork Con.
Drifting out of the province.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was this massive blitz in, I think it was Dundalk Rugby Club. And we camped. Well, we slept in sleeping bags on the ground of, I don't know what, the floor of, must have been a community hall or something. But it was just brilliant cracking. The bus trips and stopping for the chips on the way home. And there was lads, I played rugby with lads from Abbey Leaks, Mountrat, Camross, Stradbally, obviously Port Mount Mellick. That was brilliant. And I went away then to Roscrea boarding school, so you couldn't play. There was a rule that didn't allow you to play both. when you were not that it was very feasible anyway, because it was 7-day boarding, so you wouldn't be home at the weekends. And then I loved playing in Roscrea, and then I came back and I played a couple of seasons under 20 and a bit with seconds and thirds then, and again, so welcoming and so sound. And but it's a bit when you get to an adult and the job I was doing and still playing football and that, going off to Enniscorthy and Dundalk and these places, it's not easy on a Sunday to play thirds
No,
rugby
your
or
whole
something.
Sunday is gone.
Yeah.
Completely. And like you were saying as well, you do get to mix with a load of people because there's so few rugby clubs compared to
Mm.
soccer or GAA. You only have two in Laois, so you're mixing with people from all over the county and a little bit
Mm.
further afield as well, you know.
Yeah, though I had a
Um,
great season playing under 20. There was a competition, the Harry Gale Cup, which was the under 20 equivalent of the Towns Cup essentially. And Portlaoise had won 2 in a row, and then I was playing the next year, and were beaten in the final by Kildare Port Arlington, who had a very good team, the betters in the final in a tie. But a great season. Like I think we played 7 or 8 league games, and only the top maybe 2 or 3 qualified for the knockout stage. Went up to Mullingar and beat Longford in the semi final. And then got beaten by Kildare Port. But we were off in Wicklow. We played, who else did we play? Eden Derry. And it was great fun. And I challenge anyone to go to a rugby club and not find it to be the one. I would say, and I'm a die-hard GA man, I would say probably hand on heart, nearly a more welcoming environment than GA.
it's probably slightly more inclusive, I think, yeah.
Mm. No,
Slightly
that's
less elitist, maybe. Elite, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but slightly less elitist than GA or even soccer, I think.
yeah. That's
In
a
that
fun.
in that I've said it before, it caters to all kinds of skills, body types, and talents. You
Absolutely,
know,
yeah,
there is a position for everybody.
yeah.
I know we have a blitz coming up this week, and our head coach wants everybody to have a go at playing scrum half, which half of them are really looking forward to, and the other half are absolutely dreading.
Right. Yeah,
You
because
know, so
scrum half, I'd be watching it and I'd be saying, because I would be trying to influence my lad that he says to me, I want to go. Yeah, I want to go and play the rugby. And it's a different, that makes it tougher for kids in the sense that because there's people from everywhere, you don't know as many going. Now, that's a very good thing, but it's also a very challenging thing for kids. Like, if my young lad goes to play soccer, there's 12 or 13 playing the soccer, there's probably 8 or 9 of them in his own class in school. Whereas he goes to play rugby, and he'd quite possibly be the only one from his class in school to play rugby. So that
yeah, you're definitely out of your comfort zone there.
you're
All
out of
right.
your comfort zone a little bit. But you would hope that kids, the love of the game would um overtake the sort of the comfort zone element of it, and you'd push on. But scrum half, I definitely think is the because I'd be hinting him, like, you get the ball every single time, you know.
And it's almost practically illegal to tackle you when you're the scrum
Yeah.
half. You know, leave them alone. Speaking of scrum halves, Faf de Klerk, what a performance in that final.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely
He
brilliant.
really is, yeah.
He's so cocky. You couldn't like him, but you just you just have to sort of grudgingly admire him. And there's been a lot of rugby players, a lot of sports stars like that in general.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a great video going around of him trying to get a sneaky dig in Joe Marler in the semi-final, and Marler just completely ragdolls him with one hand. But I think just the balls to go for it, to go up to a giant prop and try to have some of this.
yeah, there's also a
I
video
just
of him
think he
going
was
around in
he was
his
amazing.
Springbok underpants. Did you see that one?
Yeah, he did that in the last World Cup as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
my missus was a fan of that. I have to
yeah,
say. Yeah, he likes it. There was a couple of others. There was a few of them had the Springbok underwear ready to go,
yeah,
so that's certainly a sign of confidence.
yeah. And did a great, which maybe were wearing them during the match.
But they absolutely were. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
It's a sign of confidence to
yeah,
be
yeah,
ready
yeah,
to go.
yeah. And the homecoming they got
That was
was just
phenomenal.
insane.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like it is. I know we're like it is like there is more black people playing for South Africa. The scenes in South Africa like were across the spectrum, you know. And that wasn't always the case. We spoke about Nelson Mandela last week and how symbolic it was of him wearing the Springbok jersey, given how bad the situation and that led to them being banned from world sport for
yeah.
so long.
And even in the build up to the last World Cup, Erasmus said he got an awful lot of stick, even from his own friends, for making Khaleesi the captain.
Mm,
People saw it as maybe a token gesture that because he was black, he was made the captain, but
mm,
absolutely not. He's a hell of a leader, fully deserves
yeah.
it, and I see he's the first rugby player to go over 1 million followers on Instagram. So,
Really.
you know,
Because they have
that's
a really interesting story. Like he grew up in a township.
he did. There was a couple of them actually. Was it Mapimpi was as well?
Mm.
But yeah, he's a great story. There's a few of them Springboks with a great story. Peter Steff de Toit had to have, was it ligaments or cartilage or something, a transplant from his dad's leg to his own so he could play.
Jeez.
Dion Faree is another one. He had almost given up on rugby and ended up becoming the oldest Springbok
Debutant.
debutant at
Or
36, which
36.
is just incredible.
36. Yeah.
36 to make your debut. Yeah, he had left South Africa. He went to play in Lyon. He was down in the Pro D2 in France with Grenoble. And then he ended up going back. He wanted to play with the Stormers for one last year just to cap off his career and ended up getting a call up from it, which
Yeah.
is just amazing.
Yeah.
And then to have to play practically the entire final out of position,
Mm. He's only got
it's
13 caps or something.
incredible. Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Gymnastics was his original sport. He was a very, very high level gymnast.
You wouldn't
But
imagine there'd be much crossover between gymnastics and rugby.
I suppose again, it goes back to the thing. Like it does give you a base of athleticism, and I
That's
do see
true.
kids. I do see kids that do actually two sports that I do see kids when I coach the under 7s, under 9s, kids that do MMA, and I'm not a fan of that sport, and kids that do gymnastics. Like they've got incredible agility and athleticism, sort of foundation, and absolutely, there's no harm anyway. You know.
Why do you say you're not a fan of MMA? Is it the violence or
Well, Conor McGregor would have done nothing for me.
but that's just one. I don't know if you watched the boxing at the weekend, Francis Ngannou against
No, too
Tyson
late for
Fury.
me. No.
Well, Francis Ngannou would be the complete antithesis to Conor McGregor. So if you don't like Conor McGregor, I'd recommend you have a look at Francis Ngannou. He might steer you right on MMA because it is. I know McGregor and lads like that do give it a bad name, but that's not everybody, I would say.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're coming to the end of the rugby podcast, and I think 5 minutes after the final whistle went, my Twitter was just blowing up with stuff about the British and Irish Lions, and it got me thinking. You and I might have very different opinions about this. I personally think it's time for Ireland to pull the plug on the Lions and say no thanks. We don't want it anymore. It's of no benefit to us as a country. It might benefit the lads individually, and I'm sure it's a great accolade to have, and it's the pinnacle individually of the sport. But I think the British and Irish Lions has had its day, and I don't think it serves us in particular very well at all.
Yeah. And you know what? I nearly would have been of that view previously. When I was, like the hype around the Lions tour used to annoy me. The grading of the Six Nations conversation to glorified Lions trials used to annoy me.
Yeah.
Every Six Nations games is viewed in who were the winners and losers in terms of Lion selection. And that annoys me because like these are serious contests in their own right. But as I've matured, and some people would say I haven't matured at all, I think that the Lions does have a place, and that like like rugby, every sport has its own sort of peculiarities. And rugby is unique. It's not a proper global sport like soccer. Soccer is the truly global game. Rugby is a smaller, absolutely smaller scale. And I think traditions and that are important and shouldn't be entirely sort of thrown out. And I used to give out like stink about the Lions tour. I used to be of that view that actually, Ireland are trying to compete with New Zealand and South Africa and these type of teams. They join up with England and Wales and Scotland and try and tell themselves that it's a massive achievement to go and beat some of these countries. And they often, more often not, particularly from the previous New Zealand tours, came back a shell of themselves because their confidence got such a rattle. And the Lions, for the most part, is a losing brand. Like the reason the 97 tour in South Africa is talked up so much is because the Lions had such a desperately bad record before and after it. And but having said all that, I love the build-up games. I love, particularly in South Africa, because the weather is better in South Africa. It makes for great TV. New Zealand is grim, because the weather is so crap at the time of the year it's been played in. And
Yeah.
Australia is a little bit like Australia aren't strong enough and their club teams aren't strong enough. But I love the warm-up games where they go off to some of the provincial teams in South Africa and they play in these sort of ramshackle club grounds a little bit. And I didn't the test games. The test games are generally they are a massive level up again. Like you think back, like the 3 games in New Zealand the last time, or in the last time they were in New Zealand, which is what 2017. The test
Yeah.
games in South Africa in 2009 when there was a massive Irish representation. Like those tests, I
That's
know
as
sort of
physical as rugby's ever been,
it's
that tour.
absolutely brilliant those games, and like the Australia 2013, like that was okay. Australia weren't wonderful, but it did go down to the last test. It was 1-1. It was still a game at half time of the third test. I know the Lions eventually bet the crap out with them. But yeah, I think touring is a part of rugby, and I think it's been lost a little bit. Even there's been a little bit of it's come back, like with Munster playing South Africa in Páirc Uí Chaoimh last year, and those midweek games are like I'd be a real nerd. Like I'd be watching the Tuesday games in the Lions tours at that.
Oh, I'm the same. I
You
I
know,
do quite enjoy them, but
yeah,
no, I just think that like if you compare it to last summer when Ireland went to tour New Zealand,
mm,
uh, I have never cared as much about a Lions tour as I did about those games. It was the same what,
okay.
about 6 years ago when Ireland went down to tour South Africa when your man CJ Stander got that red card in the
Oh yeah,
first or
remember
second
it?
test.
Yeah,
Like it's incomparable. I never really care. Obviously, I want the Lions to win because there's a lot of Irish lads on it, but it doesn't stir me emotionally the same way that an Ireland tour would.
yeah.
And I think maybe if they took it away from those traditional tri nations, and if it was the Lions to go and tour the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, maybe go and play in Japan, play in America, it might grow the
Argentina.
game, and then there might be some actual value to it. I'd love to see them tour Argentina.
Yeah,
That'd be
like
amazing.
it was Robert Kitson had a piece in the Irish Times, which was Ken via the Guardian or whatever, and he was saying like Ireland should be playing Canada and USA and as part of the build up, and I think there's an element like wouldn't it'd be very cool to see them play Fiji and Samoa as the warm up
Absolutely.
games to playing in Australia, and
Well, there is a possibility that they'll be playing Fiji as one of the warm up games because you've got the Fijian Drua who are playing
mm,
in Australia now in Super Rugby, and so there is talk that both Australia and the Lions will play a test against Fiji as warm up games, which would be a step in the right
a
direction.
step in the right direction. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. Look,
Uh,
I can get why you could. I get the argument you're making, but I do think it would be a loss, and I agree with you. Like the Lions game would be over, and 5 minutes later, I wouldn't be bothered by it, win or lose. I enjoy
yeah,
watching it at the time, and I think that's a big thing with the Irish public and the Irish rugby team at the moment. Like people love watching it at the time. Then when it's over, apart from the diehards like yourself, the wider public aren't as invested. Yes, they'll watch it, but when it's over and done with, it's over and done with. Um,
yeah.
Here, the other thing, Johnny Sexton's statement, and I'm an apologist for rugby, sort of the carry on of it, or the sort of the grief that it
I
gets
hated
from.
it.
You hated Johnny Sexton's statement, so did I.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I thought it was
But
pathetic and cringy.
it was absolutely fine up until the last paragraph of his statement, when he said that
That, yeah, well, that was. Go
they
ahead.
sat down as a squad 4 years ago, and their aim was to inspire the nation. We lost, but we won. Absolute nonsense of the highest
Yeah.
order. Like it's not.
No, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
I don't know why he even bothered making a statement. I mean,
Goodbye
I
and
don't get
thanks, like is
it. Well, have you heard the latest news on him?
no,
Mike Cat is supposed to be leaving the coaching ticket, and there is talk that Johnny could be replacing him.
right. I
Now,
wouldn't
I
be a
wouldn't.
massive fan of that. I'd rather to see him
No,
cut
I
his
would
ties
absolutely.
for a short while.
I expected him to go with Stuart Lancaster and coach at Racing for a couple of years. He's already been with Racing as a player. He
I
knows
wouldn't.
Lancaster very well. I think that would have been a good fit. If he's going
How
to go
much?
into coaching,
I don't think he enjoyed his time in Paris at all, though. And he's a young family.
he does have a young family. You wouldn't necessarily have to bring them. I wouldn't mind heading over to Paris for a year. Um, I don't know. I don't think this is the right call at all. I hope it's just a rumor mill and it's not going to come to fruition. But I'd be
Yeah,
concerned about it. Especially he knows all the players. Like
yeah.
I
No, he
don't think
needs.
it's good to go directly from a player to a coach in the same environment.
No, I agree. I
Don't think it
agree with
works.
you. I think he could do with a gap, like, and go to somewhere like Racing would be good for his development as a coach, like what O'Gara has done. Like what O'Gara has done has been incredible, and you'd imagine he surely has to be the next Ireland coach or the next Munster coach if he wants to be.
I'd say he can pick his job at this stage.
Mm,
You know, after winning back-to-back Heineken Cups,
yeah,
I think he can pick. If he wanted to be the Lions coach, he could walk it. If he wanted to be
yeah,
Ireland, England, anywhere basically bar New Zealand, and I would not be shocked to see him maybe take an international job before he takes the Ireland job.
yeah. Fair play to him. He's an as the Munster
Ah,
fans used to say
yeah.
about John Hayes, he's a legend.
One thing that's not a rumor in the IRFU is David Humphreys is taking over as the performance director from David Nusafora. I know you're a fan of David Humphreys. He was finishing up as I was starting to watch rugby, but he he's been involved with Ulster for the last number of years, which hasn't gone
Wonderfully,
brilliantly.
yeah.
So hopefully, he can help build on what Nusafora has done for the men's game, and hopefully put a bit of life back into women's rugby in this country
Mm,
because it's been all downhill the last 5 or 6 years.
it is absolutely such a relative high, um, at one
Yeah, they won
stage.
the Grand Slam or the Six Nations at least not that long ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago.
Got to a
So
World Cup
is
semi-final.
it semi-final? I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
Beat
So
New Zealand. Alison Miller scored a try.
yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
work to be done there, and hopefully David Humphreys is the man to do it.
Speaking of Humphreys, like I don't think we can be lucky enough to get an out half as good as Sexton or an out half as good as O'Gara again. But if we could get one as good as Humphreys, wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah,
Or my other, or one of my
I'd
other
like that as
former,
well because you might go ahead.
or one of my other favorite former players, Eric Elwood.
Eric Elwood, I like Eric Elwood myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that because if you have somebody a steady 7 out of 10, then there's less reliance
Mm.
on that one player. Like we've been far too overly reliant on Johnny for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
and I don't mind not having one standout superstar because rugby is not a superstar game. It's very much a 23-man game.
Yeah, I actually
Um,
thought they possibly missed the trick by not exploring the possibility of over the last couple of years of playing your Jack Crowleys or whoever for the first 50 minutes and having Sexton at the peak of his power for the last 30 minutes when the games were there to be won
yeah,
and lost. And like I think Ireland could have backed themselves to remain in contention against every team in the world for 50 or 60 minutes. And imagine having Sexton lift that it would give. I know they didn't take him off in the New Zealand game and he was still going fine, which is a credit to him. I remember him actually scoring a winning drop goal in a schools cup final, and he was in transition year. He was wearing the number 16 jersey, which was most unusual for a sub out half. St Mary's beat Belvedere on an absolute pig of a day in the 2002 Schools Cup final in Lansdowne Road. I was at it. I was in the upper tier of the West Stand, if anyone's interested, which I doubt they are. But he was a.
yeah. Well, I think that pretty much brings our rugby podcast series to an end. And on a personal note, I'd like to thank yourself, Alan, and all the listeners for joining us for the last 9 weeks. It's been fantastic. Before we sign off, we do have a new podcast that you're going to give us a quick rundown on. The new Leash Today Quizcast.
The Quizcast, yes. So we sort of trialed it here last week. We have at least 16 contestants. We might even have a few more, but it's like the World Cup. You have to have a few reserves because I'm sure we could have a few lads withdrawing or pulling out. It's sort of a celebrity quiz. If you use the word celebrity very lightly. We have 16 contestants, essentially, is what it'll boil down to. It's straight knockout, so there's a round of 16, which will be done on Zoom. You're the quiz master. Alan, your lovely assistant, will be on the call as well, and there'll be two contestants up against each other. The winner of which, after your 5 rounds, will go through to the quarterfinal. The first round of 16 and the quarterfinal round will all be done on Zoom. They'll be available in podcast format. They'll be available in video format on Facebook and on YouTube. And then for the semi-finals and final, they will be held at a live venue in Portlaoise. I don't want to give away details of that. I'm just waiting for confirmation on it, but I think it's looking good. And we will have a top prize for the winner. We'll have sort of goodie bags, or if you call them goodie bags, we'll have a little prize for the people who take part. There will be a LaoisToday involvement. Myself and Alan and Barry McAvoy and Pádraig Ramsbottom and a few of our own reporters will be taking part. But I think the draw isn't confirmed yet, but I think we're going to be in our own pool or segment, and there'll be one LaoisToday representative will make the semi-finals, and the rest will come from the sort of the other side of the draw. And I said the semi-finals and finals will be in a live venue, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure have you all the questions ready, Mark? Have you been doing your
not quite. I'm laboring away here. I was getting nervous when you said we might have more than 16 because I'm I'm at the end of my tether here trying to get 16 questions or 16 sets of questions for everybody.
Here, you can repeat
Yeah,
some of the
it should be
questions if
good.
you want.
Myself and Alan will get the draw sorted out next week, and we will seed it.
The draw.
The draw, yeah. Well, it'll be seeded. It'll be weighted in favour, and we'll have it. We'll do a bit like World Rugby. We'll try to make it as interesting as possible,
Yeah,
so that it's still fun for everybody come the semi-finals and the final.
yeah. It's sort of a
But yeah, I'm
regionalised
looking
draw.
forward to it.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is your
so
idea. To be fair, this is
this is
your
yeah. Go ahead.
this is your idea, and your concept, and fair play. We've sort of tried to refine it a little bit by just the structure of it, but it's definitely your idea. It's a great idea, and you've put a lot of thought into the rounds and that. And I think people will enjoy it, and it'll be, even if you're not one of the contestants, I think people will enjoy listening to it and getting the sort of guessing the answers and that themselves.
Well, yeah, it is my idea, and I've been spreading the word around the place, and there's quite a few people interested in the
Good.
live version, and hopefully, we might get if you happen to get knocked out before the live semis, we might get a few people in the crowd to challenge Stephen. Uh, we had a couple of spot prices for anybody who might be able to beat you, but
Yeah.
yeah, I've been working away on the questions. We did a trial run last week, and there'll be a few more rounds added to it as we go through the rounds. But yeah, hopefully it all goes well, and hopefully the listeners enjoy it. That's the main thing.
Is there any way of summarizing the questions, like just sort of so people can expect, like how tough will they be? I know we gave a sample of it last week, and people can listen back to that where I bet Alan, I think 5-1 or something.
My plan would be that they would get gradually harder as the rounds go on.
Okay, but don't make them too hard though.
Well, no, you get a nice sense of it last week. I mean, like we have the first round is the Golden Goose. So I'll tell you what, I'll just pick it. I actually have it open here. I'll give you a quick one at random. So okay, here we go. Who has won the most Super Bowl titles? And so I have a list of 4 teams here. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but if you give me the team with the most uh, Super Bowls, you get 2 points. That's your golden goose, 2 points. However, if you give me the team with the least amount of Super Bowls, you get -1. So you lose a point. After
Yeah.
that, then we move into round 2, which is Han Leash, and those are purely leash-based questions. It's mostly GA, but not exclusively GA. Round 3
Is there
is
only one
going to
point for the
be
Han Leash round? Is it?
only 1 point. Yeah, that's a basic round. 1 point, one answer. Round 3 is reeling in the ears, which I know you enjoyed. That's where you get 3 questions from a given year.
3 points
And
up for
round
grabs and
4
reeling in
then,
the ears.
sorry,
3 points up for grabs and reeling in the ears.
4 again if you take the bonus point, but the
The
bonus
honours
point
question.
comes with a risk. If you take the bonus question and get it wrong, you lose a point. And then finally, then we're going to do head-to-head rounds. I haven't even looked at that yet, but I will get
how
to it.
how
So
how does that work?
basically,
Yeah.
off the top of my head, let's say I ask you how many caps does Brian O'Driscoll have for Ireland? Let's say it's you against Alan. You would both write down your answer, one of you, or you both hold it up at the same time, and whoever's closest to the correct answer gets a point.
Oh, that's fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
So
good
there'll be
fun
three
one. Yeah.
questions in that round. We'll probably have a maximum score of about 10.
Mm.
And then as we move on to the quarterfinals, the questions will get harder. And as we get into the semis and the finals, we'll have a couple of extra rounds
Yeah.
to make it
Don't
worth
make them too
everybody's while
hard.
to
Don't
show
make
up.
them too hard. Tough but fair. Tough but fair. And what happens if it's a draw? Have you a tiebreaker?
I have tiebreakers.
Okay.
Yeah, I've one or
Yeah.
two tiebreakers. I'm assuming it's not going to be too many draws, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can repeat
I'll have everything
questions.
prepared.
You can repeat questions if needs be, because like not everyone will be answering the same questions all the time. So we'll allow you to repeat questions. It's not the end of the world.
Well, as it is, I have 3 of the rounds, 2.5 rounds
Oh,
done,
fair
and I
play.
have no repeat questions or anything. So
Okay. All right. Well, that tees it up nicely. We'll leave it at that. Myself and Mark will be back with a GA podcast looking ahead to the weekend. Also, this podcast is going out Thursday/Friday, and we'll also have another one out Thursday/Friday as well. We'll leave it at that. Over and out. Good luck. God bless. Goodbye.